This episode is brought to you by Nordstrom. Summer's almost out and fall's calling. Luckily, Nordstrom has everything you need for the season ahead, all under $100. Discover new arrivals from your favorite brands like Mango, Princess Polly, Wave, Free People, BDG, and more. Whether you're planning a last-minute getaway, heading back to class, or refreshing your office looks, you'll find the latest trends and beauty must-haves without breaking your budget. It's easy, too, with free shipping, free returns, and in-store order pickup. Shop today, in stores, and at Nordstrom.com.
This episode is brought to you by Espolón Tequila. Slow, sticky, snoozy. They call these the dog days of summer. But Espolón? They don't do boring. Welcome to the Marg Days. Espolón Tequila. 100% blue Weber agave, born to shake up your summer. Just add lime, agave, and a little attitude. Visit EspolónTequila.com. Espolón Tequila, 40% alcohol, volume 80 proof. Copyright 2025 Campari America, New York, New York. Drink responsibly.
The Dr. Sky Experience.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
3 minutes after the hour, ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again as we journey to the magic of the universe and beyond here on Talk Radio 77 WABC with me, Steve Cates, Dr. Sky, with another exciting edition I'm sure you'll like of the Dr. Sky Experience. We love 4 types of conversation. One of them is a dialogue. And we certainly like you to give us a call with your questions or comments. The contact number here is 1-800-848-9222. That's 1-800-848-9222. And we love emails, too. If you'd like to email me, my pledge is to get back to you and do the best I can to answer your questions. The email is simply DRSKY, of course, at WABCRadio.com. And to follow many of our previous shows and all the other great hosts here 24/7, on 77 WABC, simply go to the podcast section at WABCRadio.com or RedAppleAudioNetworks.com. And I'd be remiss if I didn't thank the helmsmen of this radio show, both Tony and Bill, navigating this powerful signal of 77 WABC, where to the nation, the world, and I'm sure all the way out to the cosmos. Great content, ladies and gentlemen, as you tell us. And if you do have program suggestions, send me an email there at drsky@wabcradio.com. And if you're a new listener, no matter where you're listening or to call us, we certainly would love to have you as a regular listener to this radio station and new callers alike. We reach out to the truck drivers, the men and women, of course, who deliver the goods that are necessary for our lives, maybe some of the unsung heroes out there, and we do know that they listen to talk shows like this across the nation, and we welcome you as new callers to this particular radio station, and maybe somebody that's way out in some other far remote locations that hopefully have a beautiful view of the nighttime sky. As we look into our skies right now, as part of our program this morning for 2 hours, we were going to be talking with somebody very special, ladies and gentlemen, about the world of astrophysics, astronomy, exoplanets, and a new discovery that's been made about one of the nearest red supergiant stars to us, a star called Betelgeuse, allegedly some 500 light years away. We'll share with you with our special guest in just a moment, Dr. Steve Howell. He's a senior research scientist, of course, at NASA's Ames Research Center in Mountain View, California. But first, a solemn tribute to astronaut Jim Lovell. We've had the opportunity in many of my previous radio shows and some television to speak with this iconic astronaut. He sadly passed on to the infinite at the ripe age of 97, ladies and gentlemen, after 4 very successful and historic space flights. Gemini 7 back in 1965. Can you imagine? He and Frank Borman sat in the tiny Gemini capsule for an incredible 14 days. Imagine if you and I were sitting in a vehicle like, say, a small compact car, and you couldn't move around much. The rest is history. Gemini 12, of course, another great mission with him, that is, Jim Lovell, an astronaut that needs really no introduction, Buzz Aldrin. Apollo 8 going around the moon in 1968, and then the fateful event, ladies and gentlemen, Apollo 13, when Jim Lovell was expected to be one of the astronauts, one of the 12, actually they would have been 14, that went to the surface of the moon. Lovell, Hayes, and Schweigert, sadly something happened to their spacecraft in 1970. The technical side was a main B bus undervolt happened. That was caused by something called a B-circuit gone. Sounds technical. They had 2 electrical buses on there. One of them failed, and in Earth language, the oxygen tank, or one of them, had exploded, and the famous words, "Houston, we have a problem." And, of course, Tom Hanks, the iconic actor playing the part of Jim Lovell in the epic movie Apollo 13. Ladies and gentlemen, let's begin by discussing our first guest, introducing him, I should say, Dr. Steve Howell. He's currently a senior research scientist at NASA's Ames Research Center in Mountain View, California. He was formerly the head of space science and astrobiology's division and a project scientist for NASA's premier exoplanet finding missions known as Kepler and K2. Steve received his PhD in astrophysics from the University of Amsterdam and has worked in many aspects of astronomy, including pioneering the use of charge-coupled devices, simply we know as CCDs, in astronomy, building new technology instruments for ground and space-based telescopes, university teaching and research, and public outreach and education. Dr. Howell has written over 800 scientific publications, numerous popular and technical articles, and has authored and edited 10 books on astronomy and astronomical instrumentation. Howell has edited and written 2 science fiction books related to exoplanets and space travel. He lives in the San Francisco Bay Area with his partner Sally and enjoys scientific challenges. In addition to that, in the great outdoors, he's a vegetarian gourmet, cooking and playing blues music, and yes, he still considers, like myself and many others, for Pluto to be a planet. And if that wasn't enough, his participation in Super Chefs, a nonprofit organization teaching food science and healthy eating to young adults, combining the latest scientific discoveries about exoplanets, fundamental physics principles, and how about this, modern food chemistry. Steve and his collaborator, Bill Yosis, who is a former White House chef, have developed a series of educational and highly entertaining scientific and public outreach programs on the physics of food and healthy eating. Now, Dr. Howell, that's a great mix of what? Gastronomy and astronomy. Good morning to you, sir. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Hey, Steve. How are you tonight?
I'm doing great. I really appreciate you. And to share with the audience, you're coming back off of a great trip into the high Sierras. And we're talking off air before, and many people have seen it. Humphrey Bogart's great movie, High Sierra. Welcome to the show.
Oh, my goodness. Friend. I love the Humphrey Bogart film.
That's an awesome story. So describe this. I mean, you get away from the city lights. You have hopefully an opportunity to see much of the nighttime sky. And in this particular edition of the Dr. Sky Experience, I'd like to get into some of the things that people can see, particularly this weekend. We'll get into it. An amazing conjunction of Venus and Jupiter for those that are early risers. And if you have a clear sky, they'll be moving in a day or so about less than a degree apart. And you bet, easy to see with the naked eye.
Yeah,
this is an amazing.
Fantastic. The night sky is great.
Amazing time with you. But let me get on a more serious note here, and I don't want to get overly serious because we want people to jump in on this. If you have questions, ladies and gentlemen, about the wonders of the nighttime sky, we can find no better person to talk with, and he's given us his time in this evening and this morning. The number, once again, 1-800-848-9222. But let's begin, Dr. Howell, by discussing something that I think is in the news this week. And let's start off with the discovery that you are so much responsible for with some of the other participants in the astronomical world. The giant, supergiant star, this red star that we've observed many times, myself, and hopefully many people out there, don't confuse it with the movie, but the star Betelgeuse. Tell us about this whole star and what this discovery is. This is fascinating.
Oh, well, thanks. Yeah, so Betelgeuse is just a fascinating object in the night sky. We all, if you look up at the sky, you cannot miss it. If you look at the constellation of Orion, which in the northern hemisphere is visible in the winter, it's a very bright red star on the corner of Orion. And that star is a red supergiant, which everybody loves because we all believe that it's going to blow up and be a supernova sometime soon. Now, the problem with sometime soon is in astronomy, soon could be 100,000 years. So we have a very different time scale in soon. And so that star for over 100 years has predicted that it would have a companion. And in December of 2024, so a few months ago, we decided to look and find that companion. And the good news is we did. There it is.
That's amazing, and you make it sound so simple, because I've been researching this, and I know, not to take away from what you're saying, we've flown many times, as I mentioned off air to you, on NASA's then SOFIA, the 100-inch telescope, a beautiful 747 SP. And on one of those missions, Doctor, you know so much more about it, we were observing from high altitude, about 47,000 feet, the star Betelgeuse for the whole night. And what they were telling me, the scientists then, there was this great dimming that happened around, 2019 and 2020. And I guess nobody really figured this out. Now you're telling us you may have found the culprit, correct?
Well, the Great Dimming event was, everybody thought this was going to be due to this companion. And the Great Dimming was it really had nothing to do with the companion. It was this giant mass ejection where Betelgeuse, which pulsates, threw off something like 5 times the mass of the sun, right? Just out of the atmosphere of Betelgeuse. And that material happened to be, in this case, in the direction of the Earth. So the material cooled. It became dust like in your quarters of your house. And that dust blocked light from Betelgeuse and caused it to dim.
Amazing. See, this is fascinating because as a regular observer, I've had the telescope out so many times, and we saw a slight change in what we refer to in astronomy as magnitude. I mean, it was actually noticeable to the eye, correct? You could see the change in the intensity.
Absolutely. We all freaked out. We all thought it was going to become a supernova, and we were excited, but it wasn't.
That's amazing. Dr. Howell, talk with us about this. Let's put this in the simplest terms because, again, the art of science and the communicators is the ability to take complex subjects and make them enjoyable like you are, and, of course, make them simple so people can understand them. Let's talk about the relative size compared to the sun to Betelgeuse. So everybody, since radio is theater of the mind, give us a best description from yourself, Dr. Howell, about the size of this star compared to our sun and how big that would be in our solar system.
Oh, of course. So if you put Betelgeuse where our sun is, its surface, as we define its surface, would be roughly the orbit of Jupiter. So it's a pretty big star. That's amazing. So, if Betelgeuse popped into where the sun is, all of our inner planets would be doomed, right? We'd be inside Betelgeuse. And Betelgeuse would be very large. And it's called a supergiant because astronomers are clever at naming. And so if things are big, they don't know what else to call them. So it's beyond the giant, so we call it a supergiant.
That's amazing. I'm not the nuclear physicist at all, but I do understand our sun, allegedly correct me if I'm not right, some 4.5 billion years of fusion, turning hydrogen to helium, blah, blah, blah. Right. But this particular star, and I read this, and that's why I'm glad we have you here, because we're saying our star's billions of years old. I'm reading, this is from your own documents that you're putting out like a white paper. The star is only 10 million years old? Is that believable, or is that correct?
Yeah, it's astronomically, this is an incredibly young star, which I know 10 million years sounds like a lot. But in astronomy terms, it's a very young star. And the reason it's where it is it is so massive. It's something like 18 times the mass of the sun. And so at that large mass, Betelgeuse evolved very quickly. It evolved from being a very hot star to a very cool supergiant star in only 10 billion years.
That's amazing. I mean, the universe gives us all these amazing things, and we're listening to someone describing this, ladies and gentlemen. So if you have comments and questions about this, again, we love the conversation in dialogue. It's a two-way conversation. The number 1-800-848-9222 as we kick off our 2-hour program. And I mentioned before to many of the listeners out there, and they seem to agree with this in emails, that it's virtually difficult, if not impossible, to do a great subject that devotes itself to details in a short 1-hour interview. So that's why we're privileged and honored to have guests like yourself that will go into the night, into the deep of the night, and talk about these things in the time that we need to understand them. So this star, let's talk about the location in the sky, because not everybody has the knowledge that you have, obviously, and people who do know the sky. You can get a simple star map. Describe where this is, the constellation, what's the relevance of the name, and not with Michael Keaton in the movie, of course, but it's kind of funny when people talk about it. I haven't seen the star disappear when you say the name a couple of times. But describe to us, Doctor, what and where is this whole thing in the heavens so people can follow this, maybe not this season, to talk about that, if you would, please.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. So in the winter sky in the northern hemisphere, and it turns out in the winter sky in the southern hemisphere, if you look up in the night sky toward in the north, for many of us in the northern hemisphere, somewhat to the south, you'll see this bright, brilliant constellation of all very bright blue stars. But one of them is incredibly red. And this is the constellation of Orion. Orion in Greek mythology was the hunter, and the red supergiant Betelgeuse is the hand of the hunter. And if you had been alive maybe 5 million years ago, Betelgeuse would not be red. It would be blue. But now you're alive today, and so Betelgeuse is red. And if you're alive in another 10 million years, the entire constellation of Orion will not be blue stars. They will all be red stars. So astronomy has a very different time scale than human life.
Yeah. Absolutely. So as we mentioned before in passing, our tribute to astronaut Jim Lovell almost made it to the triple-digit number. God bless. I hope we all do, healthy and happy. But the reality is, you're so right. Like a mayfly, the short life that has, let's say, in the insect world, compared to what we have, if we live that long, as many people do, that is incredible. But I got to ask you this, too. I've read this, and I was always confused, that if we looked and see, or could see in the light of infrared, apparently your story talks about that this would be one of the brightest objects in the sky, the star Betelgeuse?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, it's the 10th brightest star in the visual, so what we see with our eye. And in the infrared, it's nearly the brightest star in the sky.
Wow. Talk about this. This is even more interesting, and not to alarm people, because I think you've calmed us down, that not anytime soon, or we don't know, that Betelgeuse is not going to be the breaking news story of every major television and radio network in the world. But give us the scenario about how far this is away, and when it does go supernova, what can we expect here from the Earth? I mean, this would be an amazing story to hear. Please continue.
Sure. So Betelgeuse is about 600 light years away. So that means that everything we know about it is 600 years old. It's taken 600 years for the light of Betelgeuse to get to us. And all of us, myself included, would love if Betelgeuse would explode as a supernova, because it would be as bright as a quarter moon in the night sky for weeks upon end. But
amazing.
The predictions are that it will do this in the next 10,000 years. So we all have to hang in there to see it.
Hang in there. And I like that, vote of confidence that you're giving this radio audience here around the nation and around the world. So doing my simple math, not by my head, but using my iPhone, that would mean then simply that the light, if that star would have exploded as we see it tonight, would have been an event on the calendar in the year 1425. For those that were there, they didn't know that the light packet was headed. It'll take, 600 years to get to us in 2025.
Exactly,
that's amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's totally crazy. So, in this particular case, I got to ask you this. For all the young people out there that are listening, and everybody else that cares, how did you get involved in this subject? There's always a great story. This is, some people say, well, my parents made me study astronomy. Well, that's one thing. But in your particular case, no, seriously, what's the passion for this? It's like they say mathematics is an inspiration. Music is an inspiration. Either you have it or you don't. Language is an inspiration. How did you get started in this? Talk about that. That's fascinating.
Well, see, it is a great question. So when I was 5 or 6 years old, I grew up in western Pennsylvania. And I was 5 or 6 years old, and I was fascinated by the night sky. I don't know why. I just was. And I told myself at that time that I wanted to study the stars. I wanted to learn about the universe. I wanted to see all these things in my night sky. I wanted to figure it out. And my parents were incredibly supportive of me. I was the first person in my family that went to college, and I had really no idea what I was doing. There was nobody that I knew, nobody I could talk to about how do you go to college, how do you study the night sky. And as I went through, I progressed. I met people, I talked to people, and eventually I made my way to becoming an astronomer. And stars like Betelgeuse always fascinated me because they're so bright And you would think that everybody would know everything about these stars. I mean, how do we not know the ideas and the details and how these stars work? And it turns out that we didn't. And so they're just fascinating stars to study. So I thought, okay, I should study bright stars. And I did.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah, it's a passion. I mean, it's something, and again, the answer is you don't know how sometimes in these things. You just happen to,
that's right.
You get this direction, and it's amazing. It really is. It's some sort of a spiritual thing, I believe, and I do believe in a lot of things spiritually too, like many people out there. But let's talk about the star that's this discovery. You know, this is interesting. I've read about this about a week ago or so. It hits every part of the news, media and legacy media and everywhere. So it's an object that goes around Betelgeuse allegedly, what, every 6 years? Is this what I'm reading?
Every 6 years, yeah, roughly. Yeah.
And what is it? I mean, a smaller, tiny star? Is it a much hotter star? I mean, describe it for the audience. This is interesting.
Sure. So Betelgeuse, as we mentioned earlier, is, I know this is sound old, Betelgeuse is about 10 million years old. 10 million years in astronomy is very short. And so the reason Betelgeuse has become a red star is it started as a very hot blue star. And many hot blue stars have companions. This is, known by astronomers that many really massive blue stars have companions. But the problem with Betelgeuse and its companion is that Betelgeuse itself was a very massive star, 18 times the mass of the sun. Its companion was very low mass, only about 1.5 times the mass of the sun. So what that means is that Betelgeuse evolved very quickly from a blue star to a very large red supergiant, where its companion has not even become a star yet. It hasn't had time to become a real star. But all of these stars, these big massive stars, have binary companions, and Betelgeuse has one as well. And so we found that companion, and that's not unusual that they have companions, but the question is, what will happen to that companion?
Yes, that's an amazing story. And if I'm correct, this is one of the first stars that actually had its diameter ever measured. And I'm concerned about that because ground-based telescopes, for everybody who's maybe not familiar with this, you have to deal with the aberration of the light that comes through the atmosphere, of course, the waviness of the atmosphere. So how did you discover this object with what type of device? I mean, it's a giant telescope called Gemini North. That is the location, right? The big giant telescope there.
Yeah, that's correct. So, astronomers would love two things to happen. We would love the Earth to have no atmosphere, and we would love the Earth to have no moon.
Right. Yes.
Because we don't like either of those things. But, of course, that would be bad for us as humans to have neither of those. Yeah, so we use a technique, a very special technique. We have built an instrument. We put it on a telescope on Mauna Kea called Gemini North, which is an 8-meter telescope, which is one of the largest telescopes in the world.
Amazing.
And the reason that telescope is so important is that if you have really large telescopes, that means you have really high resolution ability to look at things. And Betelgeuse and its companion are very close together. And so if you had a 1-meter telescope or a 2-meter telescope, you would never be able to separate Betelgeuse and its companion. But if you had an 8-meter telescope, you would. Of course, the problem is, with an 8-meter telescope, is Betelgeuse is really bright. It's one of the brightest stars in the sky. And so how do you actually observe Betelgeuse with an 8-meter telescope? And that's the real trick. So our technique was to take very, very short exposures. We took exposures that lasted for 14 milliseconds, and we added up thousands and thousands of those exposures to detect the companion.
That's amazing. In that short a time frame. I mean, I can't even imagine. My iPhone doesn't take a short exposure like that, and many people's professional DSLRs, they don't even have that capability. So these are very, very sophisticated pieces of equipment, but I got to ask you the human part of this. What altitude are you at? Because I might pass out very easily at what? How high are you there? On top of the mountain, about how high is it?
Steve, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Did we lose you?
The human part of this?
Go ahead, Steve. I can hear you, so if you can hear me, please continue.
Yeah. He's gone.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we'll try our very best to get our very special guest back, Dr. Steve Howell, talking about his discovery. This is a big discovery in the world of astronomy. So if our good companions back, Tony and Bill, can contact him again, we would appreciate that greatly as we go to the bottom of the hour here in just a moment. Your questions and comments, ladies and gentlemen, always welcome, 1-800-848-9222, in our conversation talking about the great mysteries of the universe. And hopefully we get our guest back because we have something even more exciting. What could be more exciting than talking about the discovery of a star called Betelgeuse's companion? Then we can talk about the story of exoplanets. And this is something that Dr. Steve Howell, is so much involved with. These planetary objects, ladies and gentlemen, that are out in the universe, believe it or not, a long time ago, since 1995, when the first exoplanet was actually discovered, we find ourselves now seeing with the Kepler telescope that he was part and parcel of, seeing in that particular part of the sky and all regions of the sky, well over 2,700 exoplanets that are out in the universe. And that is totally amazing. Can you imagine if life does exist out in the deep parts of the universe? What say you? Many people out there may say, oh, I don't think so. They have to be in a certain location. Some of these planetary objects have to be just the right temperature. And these astronomers, like Dr. Steve Howell, are finding these objects in these particular area, many, many more than you would imagine. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back here on the Dr. Sky Experience. Your questions and comments always welcome at 1-800-848-9222. We'll be right back.
The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dr. Sky Experience.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We do not realize what we have here on Earth until we leave it. A quote from astronaut Jim Lovell, you just heard here on Talk Radio 77 WABC. A man who received the Medal of Honor, Freedom Medal, so many things in the world of astrophysics and space and in space flight that we talk about here. As we talk on the Dr. Sky Experience about if you're a first-time listener to this radio show, hope you'll continue to join us, and many thanks to those that regularly participate. The topics are the subjects of astronomy, space, aviation, and weather, stories of American exceptionalism, celebrity guests in the mix. What could be better than that? We're now joined by Dr. Steve Howell. We must have had some sort of a solar flare, Doctor, that must have interrupted our conversation, but hopefully you're there and we can hear you loudly. How are you, sir?
Oh, I am here, and I love the solar flare idea.
There you go. That's incredible. So let's talk about this particular companion star. I'm fascinated by this. You now give us some of the, history behind the name of Betelgeuse. You've named this particular object. Give us the name and tell us why and how that's appropriate to this particular discovery.
Sure, absolutely. So Betelgeuse, which is sometimes pronounced Betelgeuse, which is sometimes pronounced Betelgeuse, is an Arabic name, which many of our bright stars are named in Arabic because the Arabic astronomers were really great at cataloging the sky. And so the Betelgeuse name is the hand of the hunter. And so since this star orbited the hand of the hunter, we thought that we should name it the bracelet of the hand, which is in Arabic is Sawara. So we thought it'd be a great name to, keep the Arabic tradition alive and to name it that.
Well, that's interesting. From great stories of antiquity, great stories of all the great nations around the world and cultures, particularly those that you're describing, Native American cultures, as people go out right now, right, Doctor, across this wide expanse here in this particular hemisphere. We're seeing the beauty of this full, this particular month of August. We're seeing this beautiful full moon adorn our skies. But let's go back to what you say. You can't find faint objects when you have a full moon in the sky. But there you go. We got to.
The moon is one of the nemesis of observational astronomy.
I was trying to get that out of you. I appreciate that. Folks, if you have commentary on this is interesting because anything that you want to talk about, because we have the man here who can answer these questions way better than most. And I appreciate your time, Dr. Howell. But this is fascinating. So what you do there at this particular, the NASA Ames Research Center, here, I'm reading this again. You were formerly the head of the Space Science and Astrobiology Division. Let's talk about that for a minute, because that goes far and wide about what? The organic material that we're made of. We may believe, some may not, that there's life out there. Talk about what astrobiology does and what you've been doing there. That's an interesting story.
Sure, it was a great job. I mean, I had about 300 scientists that I wouldn't say they worked for me, but they were under my purview. And we did a lot of work in particular about looking for alien life in the universe. One of NASA's biggest missions these days, one of our biggest interests scientifically is there life somewhere else in the universe, and can we find it? And, life is an interesting thing. I mean, if you think about what is life, it's a very difficult thing to categorize. What planets could have life, what planets might have life. And so it's a very scientifically great pursuit.
Yes, that's amazing, because going back to another part of the discussion here, which we'll get into deeply, is this whole story of exoplanets. I mean, this is amazing. Think back 50 years, folks, when we looked and tried to see, our own solar system here. And I know you're my brother and I'm yours when we talk about you still believe that Pluto should be a planet. And I'm kind of biased because in college, I had Dr. Tombaugh as a professor. And I'm not bragging. I'm just saying that was probably the nicest man. I don't know if you've had the honor of meeting him, but I'm sure his dust particles are spinning on the New Horizons spacecraft that went out past Pluto, because that's amazing. And that's a whole other story that maybe we can talk about later. But exoplanets, 1995, I believe, the first one discovered. We're still searching the solar system and not knowing everything about it. Planets at another star system. That seems totally amazing. Talk about it. It's just bizarre.
Yeah, I find it, amazing that I have new research associates that show up where I teach classes, and everybody just accepts exoplanets because they've all been born since we know about them. But for us that are a bit older, exoplanets are a new thing, right? We didn't really think about it. But we now know of something like 8,000 other planets that orbit other stars. And of those, maybe 300 or 400 are probably something like the Earth. They're the size of the Earth. They're the right distance from their star to have the same energy we get from the Earth. And so the question, of course, is, do they have life? And so that's the next big scientific pursuit. Can we observe signatures of life?
Wow. And, they tackle this particular subject, as you know, so well. The whole story of UFOs, abductions, alien visitation, the whole other subject of UFOs, ufology. But how could we not believe, Doctor? And I'm not forcing anybody's hand here. Just giving us the evidence alone. And even if you told me we found thousands of exoplanets that were hotter than HELL, and we found one that is just literally a ball of boiling material like lava, but you told me Earth-like. I kept hearing that. You said Earth-like. So why wouldn't there be some sort of life out there? That should simply be more likely than not, right? Common sense.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, my personal opinion is there's clearly other places in our galaxy that could have life. Amazing. And will we find them? That's the trick. Because stars are really far apart. I mean, really far apart, right? And so, we all have seen Star Trek and Star Wars and all these kinds of things. But to actually travel to another star is really beyond our capability. And will it be beyond our capability? I don't know, but it is right now.
Dr. Howell, you're lighting up the phone lines, as we would expect, with great content here. Here we go. Let's say good morning to Fred in New Jersey. You're on with Dr. Steve Howell. How are you this morning, Fred?
Fine, thank you, Doc. I'm 89 years old, and I live in the same house for like 70 years. And I'm about 10 miles from the Washington Bridge. And every morning the sun would rise in the east. Now it seems to rise in the northeast and set in the southwest. Is it my imagination?
Well, Doctor, you're on. You're on stage.
Well, Fred, I love the fact that you've observed that the sun doesn't rise in the same place every day. I think that's fantastic. This is what the ancient people did many years ago. They realized that if you actually make an observation, you can learn something. So the seasonal change of the sun is a dramatic part of our life. The sun changes where it rises between summer and winter, and especially in New Jersey, which is a very northern latitude, the sun rises much farther in the south in the winter and rises much farther in the north in the summer. So, Fred, I think you should become an astronomer.
There you go. No, Fred, that's a great observation, and it's great with your question because, like the good doctor said, many people don't even notice that. So you've got a keen eye and the spirit out there of wanting to know the mysteries of the universe. Fred, you get the last word. Your comment or your second question, if you have one. Go right ahead.
No, well, I was wondering if it maybe the axis Earth changes the angle when the sun is from the northeast. Is that what changes
It absolutely changes the angle between the summer and the winter, and that's why we have the seasons. If we didn't have the seasons, the sun would always rise and set in the same place.
Yeah.
But because the Earth is tilted on its orbit, we get this great change between summer and winter.
Fred, thank you for being part of the show. I hope that answered your question, did it?
Yeah. One more quick question, please.
Go right ahead.
What fascinates me is it escaped me now. All right, I'll get you next time. Thank you.
Fred, thanks for being part of the Dr. Sky experience. We appreciate you. Let's now continue. Let's say good morning to Ted in Forest Hills. You're on with Dr. Howell. How are you this morning?
Hi. Thank you. Excellent show. Just excellent. I wanted to say, is it known why light has a speed limit? And also, is entanglement have anything to do with the speed of light? If that's any good question.
See, Doctor, we get some very intelligent callers here on this station and this show.
Okay, well, thanks, Dad. So the speed of light is kind of a funny thing, right? In that every measurement we've ever made of the speed of light is always that the speed of light is the same speed. It never goes faster. It never goes slower. And so we believe this is a fundamental property of the physics of the universe. And why that is a very deep question and still not really understood. But no thing that we've ever measured can go faster than the speed of light.
That's amazing. Ted, you had a second part of your question, if you don't mind repeating it. I didn't hear it.
Yes, entanglement. I understand one particle can affect another particle across the universe, but that has nothing to do with going faster than the speed of light?
Yeah, so entanglement is really a fun concept if it works. And that is the belief that if you have a light particle somewhere near you, like let's say in your living room, that there might be some light that is in some other part of the universe that's doing the same thing at the same time. But of course, you would know nothing about it because it's very far away. But could those light particles be connected somehow? And mathematically, there's a solution that says they could be. But observationally, we've never observed that effect.
Ted, thank you so much for calling. We appreciate you and hope you'll continue to be part.
God bless you. Be safe. Thank you so much.
Likewise. Thank you so much for being part of the Dr. Sky experience. Doctor, we're almost up at a break here again, but not to cut you short, this is fascinating with the concept of entanglement. So what I've read about it, and you could qualify this when we come back from the break, that if you were able to, let's say, flip a switch in the quantum world, and it was like a light, that instead of traveling 150,000 light years across, let's say, the alleged diameter of the Milky Way, it would happen instantaneously if that's what we're talking about in the simplest way, though you said you can't prove it. So we're going to have to leave it at that and come back with your answer here on the Dr. Sky Experience, 1-800-848-9222, as we get warmed up here, as we explore the mysteries of the universe. And ladies and gentlemen, you're telling us you do like it, like Ted and Fred. That rhymes. We'll be right back after these important announcements.
The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dr. Sky Experience.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Lovell, Hayes, and Swigert, the crew members of Apollo 13. In the words of Jim Lovell, he said, and I quote, "When in orbit around the moon, I could put my thumb up to a window and completely hide the Earth. I thought everything I've ever known is behind my thumb." An amazing distance from the Earth to the moon, as many people around the nation and around the world can experience the beauty of the full August sturgeon full moon. Riding in our skies, particularly obviously if you're in a nighttime setting, a most amazing sight, some 240,000 miles away. And many of you who have cars that have lots of miles on them have maybe driven them even more. Our special guest as we continue to the top of Hour 1 and also in Hour 2 is Dr. Stephen B. Howell. Doctor, thank you. We've got a whole bunch of people that would like to talk with you about different subjects, and I'm sure here we go with the callers. Let's say good morning to Chip in the Bronx. You're on with Dr. Howell. How you doing, Chip?
Hi, Doctor. I just have one question, okay? So, if Beetlejuice was going to explode, say, 1,000 years from now, that means that everybody happening, we're just seeing light from that, right?
Doctor, did you hear him? I didn't hear really much, Chip, of what you said. I'm sorry.
Okay, so I'll say it again. So if Beetlejuice explodes in 1,000 years, right? That means that when we see it, it already happened. We're just seeing light come.
Yes, Doctor.
When we see it happens. Yeah. So Betelgeuse is far away from us. It's 600 light years. And so if Betelgeuse explodes, we would not know about it for 600 years.
Right.
Right, but of course, we cannot be there when it explodes. So it would have exploded 600 years ago.
Amazing. Isn't that incredible? Chip, that's just mind-boggling. I mean, think about it. And what the good doctor's talking about, Chip, is that we haven't even gotten to talk about galaxies. Like, let's talk the Andromeda Galaxy. That's millions of light years.
I'm crazy about space. I know intelligent life is out there. It's just that we're only around for 100 years with the telescopes. We're only listening for 100 years, and that's nothing in time.
You're right.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I love your show.
Thank you, and I appreciate you, Chip, and so does the good doctor. Let's continue on, and obviously, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't gotten the chance, we still have another hour with jam-packed information with Dr. Steve Howell. 1-800-848-9222. But in the meantime, let's say good morning. They've waited and patiently. Tyrone in the Bronx. Good morning, Tyrone. How are you?
Yeah, good evening. My question is, why do scientists think that there is an end to the universe? If I have a piece of property and my neighbor has a piece of property, my end is where his starts. So if there is something that says the universe stops, it's something that stopped it. That would then be a continuation of the universe. My second question is, religion, I think, has hampered science from bringing forth what it really knows, as in the 13th, 14th, and 15th century. Amen. Galileo, Copernicus, all those scientists were hampered and fought against by the Catholic Church. Can you bring a show one day to unearth that?
I would love to, but the good doctor, I want him to respond to this, because I guess the main part of what I'm hearing, Tyrone, is you're worried and concerned, not worried, about where the extent of the universe is out there. Where's the end? And, Doctor, talk about that. That's a mind-boggling thing. Nobody really knows. Right?
So, Tyrone, all of us, including us scientists, we all are concerned or think about the exact question you asked. When will the universe end? Will the universe end? how will the universe end? And we, of course, have theories, and those theories are based on observations, and they're based on theories. And, you know, if we all lived for another 100 billion years, we would probably know the answer to this. But we will not, of course. And so the question is, will the universe keep expanding, or will the universe start to collapse? And if it does collapse, what does that mean for all of us that live here? And we don't really know those answers. If the universe collapses, it would take millions and billions of years before it would collapse.
Well, that's a good experience that you're giving us in confidence, Doctor, that we can get up tomorrow, Sunday morning for many, and still Saturday in the West Coast and other parts of the world, that we really don't have to worry that much. But Tyrone, if you're still with us, I wanted to jump in on something. You're so right when you were talking about the distance that religion might have had and certainly did have toward the expansion of science. Look at the story of, like, we know Copernicus, obviously, giving us the idea once again that the sun is the center of the planetary alignment, not the old way. And in the old days, right, Doctor, we had to believe that the earth was the center because people are omnipotent and mankind is the ruler of everything. How wrong they were, right, Tyrone? Isn't that amazing? Well, Tyrone, thanks for calling. But, Doctor, comment on that. It's just ludicrous. I mean, I'm not anti-religion. I'm just anti-stupidity from the time when things like that, right? I mean, it's about what they call common sense, don't you think?
I like that, Steve. You know, we've over the eras of humankind, right? There's been lots of beliefs of things, and we've found that some of them are true and some of them are false. And it's hampered many parts of human development, but also progressed many parts of human development. So it's kind of a 50-50 thing, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes we've done well, and sometimes we've really been sort of put in the doghouse.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, look, again, I'm not anti-religious. I mean, obviously I have my own faith. But the point is, if you just simply look at history, ladies and gentlemen, the people were led in such a way that, you know, what happened? Poor Giordano Bruno, right, Doctor, was burned like a charcoal briquette, just like Salem witch trials, because he didn't want to believe. I mean, can you imagine that right now? If somebody said to you, you know, you better believe in AI, and if you said, no, I don't, and the punishment was death, I mean, come on, get real. And I don't mean to be facetious to all the people that did die like that, but that's a horrible way to go. Let's see if we can get a few more callers into the top of the hour. And, Doctor, the only thing I would ask you is that maybe from your phone, if you could be in a different position, because I think we're getting a little bit of solar radiation coming through there. So we'll see how it works.
Okay, I'll try to do a little better.
As we go to the break, and when we go to the top of the hour. Let's say good morning to Robert in Suffolk. You're on with Dr. Howell. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Hi, guys.
Hi.
What kind of radiation is Betelgeuse likely to emit when it goes supernova? And can anyone maybe guess what kind of nebula it will result in when the envelope of its atmosphere expands outward? Will it be a globular or planetary nebula or something else?
Great question, Robert. Doctor, this is fascinating.
All right, Robert, so here's my initial funny answer. It was like, look out! No.
Hey, I like a doctor that has a sense of humor, too. There you go.
So Betelgeuse is the closest supergiant to us, but it is far enough away that it is not in what astronomers call the kill zone. So if we had a star that was going to go supernova that was very close to us, it would produce enough gamma radiation to kill everybody on the Earth. But Betelgeuse is not that close. And in fact, there are no stars that we know of that are that close. So don't freak out. Everybody is okay.
Well, you know what, Robert, Robert and Doctor, this is interesting. I would describe maybe we're in a situation called sacred geometry. Wouldn't you think that? It's like we're very special as a planet, and we're very lucky from what you're telling us. Robert, does that answer what you're trying to ask here today? And if not, we'll continue.
Yes, about the radiation. except for cosmic rays, will it produce cosmic rays? And what type of nebula will the Betelgeuse result in when the gas envelope of the star expands outward?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Robert. So it will produce lots of radiation across the electromagnetic spectrum. So there'll be gamma rays, there'll be X-rays, there'll be visible light, infrared light, but none of that will be dangerous to us because it's far enough away. And in the end, Betelgeuse will produce a very lovely, beautiful nebula that we will see, and we will say, wow, look at that. It will be this great nebula in the sky when it does indeed go supernova.
Robert in Suffolk, thank you for being part of the Dr. Sky experience. We're running out of time here, no fault of yours, but I do appreciate you, and hope you'll continue to join us as we explore these subjects, the mysteries of astronomy, space, aviation, weather, and we do talk American exceptionalism, and we're fortunate to have many celebrity guests in the mix. Thank you, Robert in Suffolk. Appreciate it, and you have a good Sunday morning. If we haven't gotten to you, ladies and gentlemen, we certainly will, as hour number 2 is just around the horizon. What we're going to talk about is a continuance of a story about exoplanets, because the good doctor has so much to talk about a spacecraft called Kepler that is no longer in existence as an operational object in the heavens. But, wow, doctor, when you get some 2,700 almost planetary objects out there discovered and cataloged, I'm a believer now that with all that out there, and even if 2% of them were populated as lifelike, I think we got something going on here that maybe most people may not know about. So we'll continue that with you, and maybe you'll be in a better location. You sounded better there, but again, I don't think the cosmic rays are interfering at this point. But hour number 2, ladies and gentlemen, what's the number? 1-800-848-9222, as we explore the great mysteries of the universe. And ladies and gentlemen, to pass the baton in another hour from now, we'll be passing it on to T.J. McCormick on the other side of midnight. And they, meaning he, has been kind enough to ask me to join him for a short period of time as we move into the 2 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Stay tuned with The Other Side of Midnight with T.J. McCormick. Folks, this is fascinating. Doctor, we got about a minute, so just give us a quick summary. Betelgeuse, not anytime soon as far as an explosion, right?
I would say in the next 100,000 years, so let's go. Every night, let's look.
Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. More on the Dr. Sky experience as we open up our minds about the great mysteries of the universe. Stay tuned.
The Dr. Sky experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dr. Sky experience.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
3 minutes after the hour, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to hour number 2 of the Dr. Sky experience here on Talk Radio 77 WABC. If you're interested in the great mysteries of the universe, you're in the right place, and get set for another exciting hour. Our special guest from hour 1, continuing here to 2, is Dr. Steve B. Howell. Who's he? He's currently a senior research scientist at the NASA Ames Research Center in Mountain View, California, and he was formerly the head of the Space Science and Astrobiology Division and the project scientist for NASA's premier exoplanetary mission known as Kepler and K2. And congratulations to him and his team for identifying this most important discovery about this red supergiant star called Betelgeuse, as he says, some 600 light years away, that it actually has a companion star. Most fascinating. Well, Doctor, thank you for joining us again. This is amazing, this story, and the phone calls are just lighting up here. So appreciate your time with us as we get into these subjects. Let's now go to Steve in Arizona as we continue to move to hour number 2. This is important, ladies and gentlemen. All the callers from all over the nation. Steve, good morning. How are you?
Very good, Dr. Sky. You know, I feel rather entangled because I'm another Steve, and we have Steve and Steve. Dr. Steve, I wonder where I went wrong. I'm not a doctor. But anyhow, in regards to entanglement, though, what do you think about finding entangled photons from other stars?
Ooh.
Is that a possibility? I've never thought of that before.
Here we go. This is great.
All right, well, Steve, I love your Steve and Steve thing. That's really fantastic. Because, it's not such a common name these days, so I think it's really great we're all Steve here. Yeah, the entangled photon thing is fantastic, right? That we, in principle, could find photons in our local universe that are entangled with photons in our faraway universe, and we could study them locally and learn things about the universe far away. So it's a fascinating subject, and I think all of us should figure out how to do that.
That's amazing. Okay. You have another follow-up, Steve? Continue, please, if you do.
Yeah. Well, it gets back to the Hubble Space Telescope is what 6.8 meters, and you said you needed 8 meters in the Gemini to see this companion star or object around Betelgeuse. I wonder, can James Webb see that and maybe break down the wavelength or the light from this companion star?
Sure. So, Steve, Hubble is only 2.5 meters. So that by modern ground-based telescopes is a pretty small telescope. And the problem with James Webb is, while James Webb is a big telescope, it's very difficult for most telescopes to actually look at Betelgeuse, look directly at Betelgeuse. Betelgeuse is incredibly bright. And so most telescopes cannot stare at very, very bright stars. So we had to do it with a big telescope because we needed the resolution, but we had to do it with a special instrument that could observe incredibly quickly.
Okay.
Steve in Arizona, finally, any other comment? I mean, we got a little time here because, the phone lines are getting hot here, but do you have a follow-up? I'm sorry, sir.
Well, other than I need to go out and get my doctorate, I need to to fit in this conversation.
Sure, if you get your doctorate, you're willing to take a cut and pay.
Well, if you want to get one, just mail your $1,000 to P.O. Box. No, I'm just kidding. There you go. That's not going to suffice right now. No, that's amazing. Steve in Arizona, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. The only other question I had is, how did you actually find this other companion to Betelgeuse?
Right. So there were so in science you read lots of other scientific studies, and there were two scientific white papers that came out in the fall of 2024, and they both independently predicted that a companion star is the likely solution to these measurements of Betelgeuse over time. So we had the Gemini telescope, a very large telescope, which gives us very high resolution. And we had this instrument that I had built that gave us the ability to measure things with very bright stars. So we decided that we should look and see if we can find it. And we looked in December of 2024. We made some measurements. We analyzed the data. And sure enough, there was the companion right where it was projected.
Amazing. Steve in Arizona, I hope your skies are clear like mine are here, and you can get out there and take a look at the beauty of the hot. I think it's still, in the Phoenix metro area, a little less than 100 degrees as we move on to about 10 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Thanks, Steve, for being part of our show. Let's continue. The power of the signal of Talk Radio 77 WABC is demonstrated by the following callers as we say good morning to Bartlett in the state of California. Good morning. How are you out there?
Dr. Sky, how are you?
Doing good.
I discovered your show weeks ago, and now admittedly I'm an amateur and I'm just starting to get into space things, so this might be a little off topic, but you guys will probably say it's simple to me, but I want to ask you some things if I have some questions about the Challenger.
Okay.
May I ask you a few questions? Because like I said, I'm just learning about space, and I'm just exploring all these things that have happened in history, and I happen to be reading up on the Challenger, and from what I understand, something went wrong with the ring when they launched the rocket.
Well, I'm not too sure, but good doctor, if you'd like to maybe jump in that may not be your expertise area either, but we'll give it a shot.
Yeah, I'm not an expert, but yes, there were these things called O-rings, and they were rubber, and they were between the segments of the solid rocket boosters. And these O-rings were, because they were made of rubber, if you get rubber very cold, rubber can break, right? Rubber is great in some temperature range, but very cold, it can break. And so these O-rings, because the launch was done in a very cold day in Florida, the O-rings actually eventually broke and allowed fuel from the rocket boosters to leak out, and that leaking out of fuel could then catch on fire and blew up the rocket boosters, which, of course, was the sad end to the Challenger.
Well, Bartlett, this is interesting. We know, obviously this is well documented, that they never should have launched that morning. I mean, that was just horrendous, because the particular thing the good doctor is talking about, when you have these solid rocket motors, once you light them or turn them on, the solid rocket boosters, it's like having the eraser material, right, doctor, inside that solid rocket motor, and it's not something that has a switch that you can throttle up and down. So Bartlett in California, that was a sad event in history with the loss of life, and I think the NASA space program learned a lot, don't you think?
May I ask a follow-up question?
Sure, go ahead.
Well, I was wondering, as I'm researching, I'm reading a lot of conspiracy theories, and I'm reading that they launched too early. So my question is, I don't know who's in charge of picking the launch times, but why would someone launch that early knowing that that's a risk and that's what could happen to those O-rings?
You know, Bartlett, that's interesting, not to cut the good doctor off. That's the stuff of not conspiracy theories, but many things that probably we'll never really know. I mean, the incentive was to get that rocket into space. And again, it's pretty common sense. If you know that you have temperatures like that where there's ice on the vehicle, I don't know if we'll ever know the true answer to that. Just like the Kennedy assassination and so many of the other things that are still the great mysteries. Bartlett, I thank you, but before we let you go, I wanted to go back to the
I love your show, and I'm learning so much. Thank you.
No, I appreciate you in California. The power of WABC, as you can hear, ladies and gentlemen, going all across the nation, as you would expect, with the big, powerful signal. If we haven't done that, let's say good morning to Scott in Maryland. How are you this morning? You're on with Dr. Steve Howell. I'm sorry, no Scott?
No,
oh, I apologize. Let's go. Good morning. Let's say good morning then as I go down the caller list. It's amazing, Doctor. You're lighted up pretty good here. It's like a long string of pearls. Let's say good morning to Billy in the great state of Florida, as we shouldn't say in the New York area, Florida. It's, how do we say? It is Florida, not Florida. So good morning, Billy. How are you? Ah, yes. We have a funny man on the phone. Let's say good morning to Melvin in Indiana. Go ahead, please. You're on with Dr. Howell.
Dr. Sky, I want to thank you for making me addicted to spaceweather.com.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
I check that every morning. Now, the reason I'm calling is about, you're talking about the speed of light. If I'm correct, the speed of light, is that the same speed as electricity?
Good question, Doctor. This is a good one.
I was taught that it was the same speed. But the other thing I wanted to mention also, which I think is very interesting, is if you go onto Google and you say to Google, show me the camera at MIT that takes a picture faster than the speed of light. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't, but maybe the good doctor does. Let's defer to Dr. Howell on this. Yes.
Well,
let's start with the speed of electricity. So the speed of electricity is about 1/3 of the speed of light. So light is light moving, but electricity is electrons moving. And so electrons move in wires typically at about 1/3 of the speed of light.
Interesting. Does that satisfy the question as an answer?
It does, but if the speed is the speed of light and the speed of darkness the same speed? Because at MIT, the camera and you can see this. It's not a camera that you wear around your neck. It's with a computer. They take a table that's about 3 feet from the wall, and there's a bowl of fruit on the table. And they photograph the bowl of fruit. Well, the camera's on the bowl of fruit. They should have used a 2-liter bottle of Coca-Cola or Pepsi, but they used a bowl of fruit.
There you go.
Now the camera takes a picture of the bowl of fruit and the wall. And there's a light, a bright light in front of the fruit, and that makes a shadow on the wall. The camera shows the wall before the shadow arrives. So you see a blank wall, and then you see the shadow come to the wall.
Wow.
So does the shadow travel at the same speed as the light does?
Wow. We get some great callers here, don't we, Doctor? This is amazing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, Melvo, I cannot really comment on that. I will have to look that up and see what you're talking about, but it sounds pretty fascinating.
I got to tell you, I went to school. I went to school at New York Institute of Technology back in the 70s, and I'm a lot smarter today than when I went to school. I wanted a refund.
That's amazing. You say it so well, but let me clarify something in the simplest way. Everybody listening around the nation, around the world, remember this number and impress your friends and relatives. When people talk about how fast a vehicle they have, oh, wow, my motorcycle, my Tesla Plaid that can go, and you need a chiropractor after you hit the accelerator or what have you. The speed of light, right, Doctor? 670 million miles an hour. That beats spacecraft. That beats so many things. So I think that kind of gives us the understanding that that's so incredible. 670 million miles an hour. I can't even imagine that, but I just said it. Doctor, am I right on that? I mean, that's a pretty good number.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, if we had a car that could do that, that would be great. And in fact, if you rode in that car, you could age less. So there you go.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for your interest, and we hope you will call the Dr. Sky Experience. Let's continue with our callers, and we do appreciate everyone here with their questions and observations, and an occasional funny man that we do get here throughout the broadcast night.
He did play the harmonica, which I really
Well, I'll tell you, as long as it's not against violating any FCC rules, which we would never tolerate. But let's say good morning on a serious note to Jeff in Queens. You're on with Dr. Steve Howell. Good morning. How you been?
Good morning, gentlemen. Yes, I just wanted to know if you could clear something up. I've heard that China and America are doing a joint task, putting a telescope on the moon. They also have a satellite that's orbiting around that area of the moon to send back data. Is that true?
Well, Jeff, that's a very interesting commentary. As far as I know, at least from the astronomical NASA view, is that China and the U.S. are not doing any joint missions. We have each expanded our knowledge to space. China and the U.S. are both launching various things to go to the moon and beyond, but I don't know of any joint missions we're doing.
Jeff, this is interesting. I wanted to jump in on this. You have to give the Chinese Space Agency a lot of credit, and I'm sure the good doctor would agree. They've put spacecraft on the far side of the moon, not the dark side. We love Pink Floyd. But the reality is they've set up a system where they have a relay satellite that sits and positions itself like we have geosynchronous satellites, Jeff, we all know, around the Earth to do transporting of, communications, like Starlink. But they have this one that they could actually land something on the far side, transmit back up to the spacecraft, and send information back. So in many ways, people are saying, Jeff, that they're a little bit more ahead and focused than we are. And they're just looking at that as the United States, the acting NASA director, is looking now to look at sending a nuclear reactor to the moon. I don't know if you heard this also, Doctor, by 2030, which gives us hope that maybe once they plant that, it'll obviously be a power source for future habitation on the moon. Isn't that amazing, Jeff, all the stuff that we talk about?
It's absolutely amazing. And when you talk about the speed of light just now, the speed of light in the universe would be like a slug, because you'd have to travel, say, 50 times more the speed of light to reach these galaxies and places that we like to explore, to see. That's what's great about space, because you have cosmetic stuff, you have theories, and people want to prove things right, people want to prove things wrong, and people just want the data to see what's actually going on. Gentlemen, you guys are really wonderful.
No, thank you, Jeff. I really mean this. This is great. It's, I always say it's not about the host, and I mean that sincerely from the bottom of this heart. It's always about the great guest and also the callers here. So this is fascinating. And if we're doing a good public service, I think we are, Doctor, with you and many other guests that we have, we're opening up the minds of people that in the daytime, since our lives are mostly ruled by the sun, we miss, not intentionally, but we miss because what? We're so busy with everything that goes on around us, which is obvious. We have to pay our bills, we have to go to work or do our things. So this is an opportunity to what, Doctor? Exhale, breathe in, and relax and enjoy this most magnificent universe that you're bringing to us.
Absolutely, Steve. So everybody should take some time, whenever it's nighttime where you are, go outside, spend 5 minutes in the night sky. Just be fascinated by what you see up there and think about what that means to the universe and to you.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Jeff in Queens, thank you for being with us. Folks, I didn't give out the number, and I should many, many times, because we'd like you to be participating in our dialogue here. We like dialogue. 1-800-848-9222. If you're just joining us, if you're listening to us in far-reaching places around the nation, around the world, feel free to call us wherever the number reaches, 1-800-848-9222. Dr. Steve B. Howell, he's with us, senior research scientist, talking about not only his discovery or co-discovery of a binary star around the red giant supergiant, Betelgeuse, giving us a safe assessment that we do not have to worry into our Sunday morning or next week that will be fried with any kind of rays from the universe. It's amazing. So thank you for calming us down there. But look, and I say this with respect to everybody out there that wants to get on the conversation. This subject could go on for 40 hours, but we don't have time. But I want to get into this really big and deep with you. Exoplanets. Talk about this Kepler spacecraft, because I got to be frank with everybody. I've always been enamored by Hubble. I've been enamored by this whole James Webb. And then when I go and do this research for this show on Kepler Space Telescope, what was your involvement with that? I mean, you sound so, how do I say this? Very humble about this, but to describe your involvement in this. This is big time.
Sure, yeah. So Kepler was a satellite that was launched in 2011. It was a very small telescope by Hubble and James Webb standards, but it was a telescope that had one purpose. The purpose was to stare at hundreds of thousands of stars and look for signatures of planets, other planets, that orbited those stars. In the end, Kepler found over 4,000 other planets that orbited other stars, not our sun, but other stars, and gave us statistics of those planets in terms of their size, their mass, their orbital period. So this was the first proof that we really had that other stars have planets, that our solar system is not alone, that many other solar systems exist. And then the question is, do any of those other planets have life?
Yeah. Amazing. And you just gave us numbers. I thought I was seeing up to like 2,500. 4,000, that's a big jump in number. I mean, if somebody said that, you're owed $4,000 and you only got 2,600, you'd be cheated out of money. And in this case, you've got a bonus on top of this. So again, and not to sound redundant, maybe it does sound redundant. I'm with the big exclamation point over my head here. And this is the, theater of the mind radio. With all those numbers, let's say even 10 of those stars, or planetary objects, had some sort of life, it gives credence to the whole concept that we are this tiny little blue pale dot, as Carl Sagan said, in this vast sea of the infinity world. It's so incredible. Wow. Amazing.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. And the two sort of dichotomy here is that there are so many other planets that probably could have life, but they're all so far away, so very far away. So how do we contact them? How do we prove there's life?
Yes, that is amazing. And in the ufology world, ladies and gentlemen, this is interesting. You know this, the great physicist, part of the atomic weapon development at Manhattan Project, Enrico Fermi, has this Fermi paradox. And the question was posed to him, Well, if all these so-called civilizations are out there, and we've sent signals, why haven't we received anything? And his general, consensus is that maybe there's some sort of a filter that's out there, not put there by us, of course. Isn't that an amazing thing? Maybe they've been here and looked at it and said, you know what? Hey, you guys and gals violated the big principle of humanity, the golden rule you violated. Why couldn't you all get along, right? So maybe they don't want to contact us. Doesn't that sound a little bizarre? But Enrico Fermi was a smart man.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. So Fermi kind of, in the end, believed that we would all kill ourselves before we evolved enough to contact each other.
Wow.
And if you're a naysayer or you're really a doomsday person, you might believe that's true. The other part of that, which he did not get into, is that stars are really far apart. And to communicate between the stars and their planets, is really, really difficult.
Yeah, it sure is. Because we're going to get back from the bottom of the hour break, I want to jump into a subject that you obviously have a great expertise in. One particular planetary system, the TRAPPIST system, maybe some 40 light years away, one of the candidates that might be what? On the top of the pecking order, Doctor, of all these different planetary systems that might have or the capability of being Earth-like. That's just mind-boggling. I mean, just one example of a few objects around a star. Just that blows my mind.
Yeah, the TRAPPIST-1 system is probably the best, closest, coolest, astronomy greatest place where we might have planets that might have life that we might actually be able to communicate with, because it's so close to us and close, 12 light years. That's a long way. So imagine you send a signal. You say, okay, I'm going to talk to these people. I send out a signal, a radio signal. Hey, how are you guys? So 12 years from now, it gets there. Those folks on those planets say, oh, look, we got a signal. Let's send back to them. 12 years later, it gets back to us. So 24 years later, we get a response.
Yeah, amazing. And the vastness of the universe. I mean, one of the callers before was talking about where's the end of the rope, so to speak, or where's the end of the line if it were a train or a subway system. And we don't have the answer. I mean, what did somebody say? 93 billion light years might be the end wall. And I'm sitting here saying, well, that's not the number I came up with because I'm not smart enough to come up with that number. So what could be, I mean, a serious question, what could be the extent of what the observable universe really is? What do you think? How far out?
Well, we know the universe is expanding. Will it continue to expand or will it contract? We know that it is 13, 14 billion years old, 15 billion years old, which means that if I'm over here and somebody's over there on the other side of the universe, we are 15 billion light years apart from each other, which is, unfathomable in what that means in time. Right. And so the question is, how do we understand this? And so we only can make measurements of light we receive, and the light we receive is old, right? Something happened. I mean, even on Betelgeuse, we get light from Betelgeuse. It's 300 years old, 400 years old. And amazing. So something happened there 400 years ago.
It's incredible. We're almost at the hard break as we go and talk in media at the bottom of the hour. But this is interesting. Our very special guest, and he continues to the top of the hour, Dr. Steve Howell, Senior Research Scientist, and where? He's at NASA's Ames Research Center in Mountain View, California. If you're Karen in Brooklyn and Joan in Manhattan, and anybody else that's going to stop by and say hello to the Dr. Sky Experience, you can do that in the form of dialogue at 1-800-848-9222. Much more as we move to the top of the hour, 2 a.m. That's when we'll pass the baton to T.J. McCormick on the other side of midnight, and he's been kind enough to ask me to join him for a short segment as we continue to talk about the legacy and loss of astronaut Jim Lovell. I'm sure he's moved on to the infinite, a life packed with space travel. We'll be right back.
The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dr. Sky Experience.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
I was born a year after Lindbergh made his historic trip across the Atlantic. Another quote from astronaut Jim Lovell as we mark his time in space and honor his service to the United States of America and to the United States military. As we continue with 32 minutes after the hour, ladies and gentlemen, many people have commentary and questions. Let's say good morning. She's been patient. Let's say good morning to Karen in Brooklyn. Good morning. You're on with Dr. Howell.
Hi, Dr. Howell, Dr. Sky. What were you just talking about? The universe? Maybe the universe is round. But 360 degrees, the speed of light, I don't know. Anyway, that's just a thought. I put it out there, but that's not why I called. If Russia, if China, what you were just talking about, have something on the moon, how are they not a developed country?
I'm sorry, Karen. Say that again. I'm sorry. We heard somebody else.
On the moon, you just discussed how they're building things on the moon, China?
Yes.
All right, so yesterday I had a guest saying that they are considered a developing country. So now I would get on it. If you can put things on the moon, that maybe you're not an underdeveloped country after all. And I would just get on them for that. That's all.
No. Hey, Karen, thanks for being part of the show. Doctor, your comment, it goes more to a political kind of conversation, but go ahead. Oh, okay. No, this is interesting, Karen. I mean, what I talk about here is, look, this is something interesting. People know this, and I'm sure our military knows this. China has a very, very aggressive space program, and their goal is to put their tikonauts, as they call them, Chinese astronauts, on the surface of the moon by one of the big celebrations that I have as one of their major anniversaries, and I think that comes around toward the end of this particular decade. So if that does indeed happen, well, that's great for them, but the point is, do we really have another big space race here? And God forbid that we ever use the moon as a military platform. And I'm trying to be honest here. I don't know if that's impossible. You know, look at the way the world is today. We have satellites in space that may have weaponization in them. Other nations have satellites that can, how do I say this? They can be used to take down other satellites, and that's another story itself. But I don't know if we've answered your question, Karen, so I appreciate you calling.
No, I'm just making a comment. Making a comment.
I do understand, yes.
If that's true that they're building nuclear reactors on the moon, I thought I heard that.
You're
correct.
That true? The United States is looking to put one on the moon by 2030 is what I've heard. That is correct.
What do they do with that? We need energy?
No. It's for the possibility, hopefully, if they put the reactor there, they're going to spend a lot of money. But that's so that when they send humans, Americans, or other nations to that location, they'll build a moon base. And what they'll use is they'll need a power supply to continually keep them going. So it's like if you had a generator in your home, let's say you had a generator, outside somewhere, or you're out in the middle of nowhere, but it's run by diesel. So at least you have a way to survive out there and generate electricity, and nuclear power would certainly be, I think, the part and parcel to that.
Okay,
I like your comments. No, thank you, Karen. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Dr. Sky.
Thank you for being with us. Let's say good morning to Joan in Manhattan. Joan, good morning. I hope we have the good doctor back. Do we have Dr. Howell?
Yes, I am back.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead, please. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I have a question about rotational velocity. What determines the rotational velocity of a planet? How do we have something anomalous like, the Earth, as we know, turns its axis once a day, 24 hours. Venus, on the other hand, takes 243 Earth days to turn on its axis. What are the velocities there exactly, and what is responsible for that? And I think you, Dr. Sky, once said that Venus turns backwards. What does that actually mean? And I'll hang up and listen on the air, okay?
Well, you're so kind to call us, and the good doctor would be better to answer this, but the thing is it's retrograde, meaning it rotates backwards. But, doctor, not to steal your thunder, because we do have a lot of monsoons in Arizona with a lot of thunder, so please continue.
That's crazy. So, Jim, what a fantastic question. I mean, this is one of the biggest mysteries in astronomy. So Venus and the Earth are very similar in size, very similar in mass. Both of them exist in what is called the habitable zone. So if we observed our solar system from far away, we would not know if Venus or the Earth had life, but we might think they each do. So Venus rotates incredibly slowly, and it rotates, as Dr. Sky said, it rotates backwards from the Earth. So the theory that astronomers believe is that Venus, at some point in its past, was hit by a very large object, a very big asteroid, that caused it to change its rotation to be backwards from its initial rotation and to be very slow. While the Earth, luckily, was not hit by such a big object. And so the study of Venus is so important to understand why Venus ended up like Venus and the Earth ended up like the Earth.
Amazing. That's a good one. I know that Joan had left us, but I want to do this, if you don't mind, Doctor, do a little sky update for everybody listening. And this is like a little treat that both of us, and jump in if you want to add more to this. Obviously, right now, the nemesis for the dark sky observers, or deep sky, is this beautiful full moon. But for those that love the moon, and there's many of you that do, that full sturgeon moon occupies the sky if you're in dark now. Take a look. But here's something interesting. On Monday morning, meaning Sunday night into Monday morning, if you get up early, about 2 hours before sunrise, and look over to the northeast, you're going to see Jupiter and Venus come together in a conjunction about less than a degree in the sky, right, Doctor? And this is going to be amazing because many city dwellers tell me, well, you tell us about meteor showers and things, and you can't see it because of the light pollution. Well, this is one, right, Doctor? You'll get to see. And we're in the throes.
Get to see,
yeah, and we're in the throes of this Perseid meteor shower. Talk about that. That's fascinating, too.
Yeah, so the Perseid meteor shower and the planet conjunction, this is when, the planets move, right? We all move. We orbit the sun. And at some points we make these alignments. And then meteor showers, which are basically the paths of comets in our solar system. The comets have, over time, fallen apart, become lots of little rocks. And when the Earth's orbit passes through those orbits of the comets, we get meteor showers. I mean, it's just a fascinating part of the sort of living part of our solar system.
Yes, it is.
Static. It lives, it moves, it breathes. We see these things.
Another little treat that I want to pass on here, and I think you would love this, and probably you've done this from the giant telescopes like the Gemini North, but for the average people who have, like myself, a little iPhone or a little Android, I sat at a home we have up in the mountains at 8,000 feet up in the mountains of the Mogollon Rim, and I said, I'm tired of taking these 1-second pictures with my iPhone. So I read, and folks, this is amazing. If you're in dark skies, I cannot imagine. I mean, you can't imagine what you can get. And believe me, when I did this, I figured out how to get, Doctor, a 15-second exposure. And on a dark, moonless night, I have these epic pictures that people 30 years ago would be jealous, and everybody can do that. Isn't that amazing? That's a great thing.
It's absolutely amazing. I mean, the detectors in your phone and the technology, the ability to take pictures of the sky is phenomenal.
I wish we could send them all out there, but if anybody wants to email me, drsky@wabcradio.com, I'll be more than happy to send you a picture. And I don't have any, restrictions on it because I don't post a little, my copyright thing, but I know, how people can get. We don't want to steal anybody's pictures, rightfully so, but hey, I'm doing it because you can do it, ladies and gentlemen. 1-800-848-9222, almost coming up to the break here in the 45 mark as we move toward the 2 o'clock hour here in Eastern Daylight Time, the second hour of the Dr. Sky Experience. Let's say good morning to Fred in upstate New York. Fred, you're on with Dr. Howell. How are you doing?
The subatomic quantum camera that the gentleman was talking about that can take pictures faster than a shadow can travel to the wall is real, and it's in use at all Easy Pass toll booths and congestive pricing at Hudson River crossings. Yeah.
Wow. I would say that that's a funny man, but you know what? He brought up some very interesting points, though, about the technology that's used against us and to track us, as opposed to what you're doing, Doctor, in some of the world's highest and best observatories. But at least that's a good thing that you're doing. But there you go.
Yeah, so cameras are cameras, right? See, there's lots of things that are called cameras. But here's the trick, right? If you take a picture with your cell phone of a person standing 5 feet from you on your picnic day, you have so much light entering your camera. But if you take a picture of something like a very faint astronomical object, you have probably one billionth of the light from that object. And so you have to have a very special camera to observe objects in the universe versus taking a picture of your friends at a birthday party.
Yeah, amazing. The technology is so incredible. And these giant telescopes, I mean, when we come back from the break, and hold me to this because I don't want to shapeshift on you with a different topic. These cameras that we're using right now, like the Vera Rubin telescope, more of a camera than it is a telescope, but it's incredible what you can get, the number of pixels, right? This is off the charts. If people had in their own DSLR or their own phone the equivalence of what you have in these telescopes, you couldn't afford it, right? We couldn't afford the phone. It would be amazing.
No one can afford it.
Absolutely. Totally amazing. No, that's incredible stuff you can take, folks, with your own phone if you have a dark sky. I'm no master of astrophotography, but another thing that people can get are these little tiny telescopes that are these little AI smart telescopes. What's that? I have one. It's called a little Dwarf 2. That's the name of the company that made it, Dwarf with the number 2. I'm still learning how to use it, but I can get maybe a picture, 1/1,000,000th of what you'd get at the Gemini North, but way better than my camera, my little iPhone. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you mentioned the Rubin telescope. So the Rubin camera is roughly the size of your refrigerator. I mean, it's enormous, right? It's enormous in terms of the light gathering ability of that. And those particular detectors are probably 1 billion times more sensitive than the camera you have on your cell phone.
That's amazing. And more with Dr. Steve Howell when we come back from our last break of this journey, ladies and gentlemen, to expand our minds. And by the number of phone calls, Doctor, I think we're expanding at the speed of light. We'll be right back.
The Dr. Sky Experience on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dr. Sky Experience.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Do not go gentle into that dark night. A quote from Dylan Thomas about the survival of the human species, and also a key component spoken in the incredible movie, if you haven't seen it, Interstellar. We're back with Dr. Steve Howell at 48 minutes after the hour, and I want to thank those that are doing this, the helmsman role. I want to thank Tony and Bill for navigating this powerful signal to make everything come together, and we appreciate their help always. Thank you. Doctor, I'd like to talk about something here. First of all, let's get a way for people to get in contact with you. What's the best way? And if you don't mind sharing that with the audience, so people can send you an email or follow your website. What do they do?
Absolutely. So the best way to contact me is through my NASA email. Your show might be able to promulgate that out to people, but it's an easy thing. Look up my name, steve.b.howell, and look me up under NASA, and you can find my email message, and I'm happy to hear from you.
Well, let me give that email again. It's steve.b, the letter B, .howell, Howell, at nasa.gov. And we appreciate that. In the time left, I got two things I'd like to ask you about, but you get the floor on this, non-interruption from myself. And if anybody wants to still call in, we welcome you at 1-800-848-9222. But what's the message that you want to give out? If you had just a few minutes to say something about what you've done, the study of the universe and the things that go not necessarily bump in the night, what would be your message to the world? And Dr. Howell, do we have you? Well, in the meantime, I'll continue to talk about this interesting subject. I was going to ask the good doctor about this. The Pluto controversy. He and I were sharing offline some commentary about what happened to the object that was discovered back February 18th, 1930, here in my home state by a person that I had when I was in school, Dr. Clyde Tombaugh. And not just because I thought he was a great instructor, But what a humble man that actually got together at the Lowell Observatory, a great place, ladies and gentlemen. If you have any time to visit the great state of Arizona, I strongly recommend that you visit, if you haven't already, the Lowell Observatory. Why? Because this is the location, of course, where this object was discovered, the then planet Pluto, February 18, 1930. But things changed when the International Astronomical Union got together, I believe around 2006, and they didn't have enough members in the meeting, but somebody said, we need to demote Pluto because we call it a dwarf. Doctor, welcome back. I gather those solar flares are still somewhat permeating the universe.
So something happened. So did I get my contact message out to people?
You did, sir. You did. I gave that email. But again, what I was going to ask you is, you're more important than what I have to say right now. And of course, I was asking you, of all the things you've studied, all the things, if you had just a few minutes uninterrupted, and you have a few, what would be the message you want to tell the world about this subject that you're studying and the wonders, not to bend arms to people, but the wonders of what you talk about? What's the most important message you could give people out there?
You know, the most important message I probably have is discovery. I have spent so many years looking at astronomical objects and, making instruments that do various new observations of that. But the interesting part to me is you never know what you're going to find. And, maybe 80% of it is cool astronomy stuff, like, I found a companion, I found a red star, whatever, right? But 20% of it provides incredible technology that eventually gets into the public market. For example, all of you with cell phones, all of you that have cameras, those were developed for astronomy. Every one of you benefits by the fact that astronomers developed cameras so that you could have a camera on your phone today. And there are so many other examples of that scientists present discovery.
Amazing. I got to salute you again on this discovery and your companions that work together on this. It's not easy to discover something that's 600 light years away and it's hiding itself in the mask of a big giant star. So congratulations on that. But again, something else that I want to talk about, and I do this on the lighter side. You have this amazing mix of gastronomy, the science of fine food and the creation of it, and astronomy, with this organization called Super Chefs, and a nonprofit teaching food science. This is fascinating. And with you and the collaborator, Bill Yosis, if I have it right, a former White House chef. That's amazing. Correct. That's otherworldly. Talk about that, because that's really cool.
Yeah, so it turns out that Bill Yosis and I went to the same school together, but never knew each other at that school. And so we were both brought back to that school many years later to get some award for achievement, and we just fell in love with each other. I mean, he was a cook, I was a scientist, and we thought, wow, we could bring science and cooking together, and we can bring this to the public as food science for children. And so That's awesome. Now run an organization where we do cooking, we do science, and it all goes together. Because who doesn't like to eat? Everybody likes to eat.
You bet. Yeah, and after this show, I'm going to chow down on something because you're making me hungry. Let's say good morning to Sal in Minnesota. We'll try to get as many callers in. You're on with, of course, Dr. Steve Howell. Good morning, Sal in Minnesota.
All right. Hi,
Sal. Another funny man calling. It happens. Let's, on the serious side, say good morning to Neil in Delaware and your question or comment to our special guest.
Good doctors. How are you today?
Good morning.
We're fine. Thank you, Neil.
So back in when I was in college in 1982, I was dating a young woman and put a ring on her finger, but then happened to fall in love with someone else. And it took me a couple of weeks to figure out that I had to make a decision. And I believe on March 10th of 1982, all the planets aligned. I didn't know it at the time, but I had to break it off with one of them. And when I found out that the planets had all been in alignment on that particular day, I had a revelation of sorts. I just thought I'd share that.
Well, that's amazing. I appreciate that, Neil. And, again, these things in the heavens for thousands of years, right, Doctor? Big signs in the heavens from eclipses. Look at what they did they stopped wars in certain cases. But in your case, Neil, that's an interesting relation to talk about the alignment of planets, the story of love, and the beat goes on.
The planets aligned. And just wanted to say I'm a big fan, Dr. Sky, for a long time. And Dr. Howell, thanks very much for all the information you gave tonight. Wonderful show.
Of course.
Well, Neil, we appreciate
you. You had a relationship. Great.
No, thank you so much. We appreciate your time. We've got just a couple of minutes left, and I hate to keep talking about the countdown clock, but it's like launching a rocket. You got to be on time, and you got to do it right. Give me your opinion of the Pluto controversy. I was just talking when we lost you from the Betelgeusian wave of interruption to the universe, maybe temporarily.
Yeah, well, I love Pluto. It is my favorite planet, and I know some of your listeners will say, wait, it's not a planet anymore. Well, to me, Betelgeuse will always be a planet. I have met Clyde Tombaugh. I have studied Pluto, and to me, you can call it anything you want, but it's going to be a planet to me. The controversy was that Betelgeuse. I'm on Betelgeuse. Pluto clearly is a different kind of planet. It's a very different planet than all the rest of the planets. It's small. It's far away from the sun. It has an inclination in its orbit that's different. And so, it's not quite like the other planets. But I think that, once we categorize it as a planet, we should have grandfathered it in.
I agree. And it's amazing that one day, we've been studying this with the Southwest Research Institute, many of the scientists there that believe that this should still be a planet. And again, no darkness to the people that don't believe in this, at least from the astronomical community. But there's many reasons why. And I think an object that has 5 attendant moons, an object that does 17 degrees to the ecliptic plane. And, it's, I think the problem, Doctor, and I think we can do this in another iteration, hopefully with you, if you'll agree. The whole definition of planet, I think, is so obscure that really that's maybe the part and parcel problem with why we have Pluto being, delineated to a dwarf. Would you not agree?
Oh, Steve, absolutely. Right. The definition of planet is very foggy.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's amazing that the planet itself, our experiences, I didn't know you met Dr. Tombaugh, but my mother, we lived in Las Cruces, New Mexico State for a short time in my life. And that's where I met him, and we were close. I'd go to his home, his wife Betsy, they would serve dinner, and we would sit and talk. And I was like, I didn't realize that when I was that young, how much of a legend that I was really sitting in front of. But the thing I loved about Dr. Tombaugh, and maybe this came across to you, a very simple man, didn't have all the luxuries, didn't want the fancy cars and all the other fancy clothes, just a person who believed in science, was humble, and apparently his story goes, he came from Kansas with $20 in his pocket on the train looking for a job at the Lowell Observatory, and they said, well, we don't know, you don't have any experience. And he said, well, I'll work and do just about anything. He swept floors, he worked his way up, and imagine finding an object like that in 1930 with the lack of sophistication of the equipment that we now have today. Isn't that amazing?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he was a pioneer, absolutely a pioneer.
Well, Doctor, I want to thank you. I hope you'll join us again and agree to it in this particular moment that we say thank you for your time, and we'll do this again. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Steve B. Howell, his email, again, give it one more time here, steve.b.howell@nasa.com. And now we pass the torch to T.J. McCormick, the other side of midnight, and they're asking me, and he is, that I'll be joining him for just a short segment on the legacy of Jim Lovell. And I want to thank everybody for listening. Health and happiness. Get out there and observe the wonders of the universe. And again, our special thanks to Dr. Steve B. Howell. We'll do it again soon.
Great. Thanks, Dr. Sky.
Thanks for listening to the Dr. Sky Experience. You can hear the Dr. Sky Experience Saturday mornings, midnight to 2 a.m. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
Life is a workout, and Smoothie King is here to help you power through. Whether you're crushing morning miles or sprinting through back-to-back meetings, Give your body the energy, protein, and power it needs to help you conquer your goals. Only at Smoothie King.